So hand here is at Philly Live 510.
Philly Live, another Michael G hand, huh? Philly Live 510. This used to be what, Sugar House?
I haven't been playing there long enough to really remember a younger guy, to be honest with you.
I think it was called Sugar House. Okay, so 510 no limit. Yep.
Yep. So we're gonna be 2200 effective here, eight-handed. Folds to me and under the gun +1. Hero looks down at 10 of hearts, 10 of spades. Standard raise to 25. Folds to villain in the hijack, who three bets to 75. Folds back to me. A little bit of history with the villain. Probably played about 2 or 3 sessions with them. Definitely would say they're a bit on the tighter side. More linear 3-bet range I'd be looking at. Probably something similar, jacks plus, ace queen suited plus, maybe some king queen suited, ace king off.
How deep did you guys see? I'm sorry if I missed it. How deep are the stacks?
Yeah, 2200 effective.
2200.
So,
okay.
220 big blinds.
Okay. So you get 3-bet by the hijack to 75. I assume you play this as a call?
Yep. Yeah,
Okay.
played as a call.
Okay.
Yeah, I did run the hand through a sim, so I'll kind of go with some of the stuff that I got from that. It mixes, but again, I think against a tighter opponent who I really haven't seen anything to show they can 3-bet light. It's just a simple call.
You ran it through an 8-handed non-ante 200 big blind sim?
Not 200, 100 big blinds, so obviously going to be a bit skewed. But
I just want to point that out that sometimes people, I'm not saying you, but sometimes people take these like that app. What is it called? Post Flop Plus. Is it called Post Flop Plus? Or there's like a pre-solved app, and you can sort of do these shortcuts, but sometimes the outputs aren't going to be exact. But okay, so you call, so the pot's like 160, right? Something like that.
Yep, more or less.
Solver Plus is what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yep. So the flop is king of hearts, 10 of clubs, 9 of spades.
King of hearts, 10 of clubs, 9 of spades. So again, we have a middle set, right?
Yep, back-to-back hands, I guess.
Middle set, okay.
Yep, so check and flow, range check there. Not much to say. I don't think there's too much merit to leading. Villain does bet 50. Obviously, kind of the first inflection point of the hand as it comes back to me.
So he bets 1/3 the size of the pot. You have middle set on king 10-9, and now you're obviously trying to decide what to do. I mean, what I would say, like off the cuff, I mean, it is a live game, and my first reaction here is just that obviously against less than 33% sizing, you absolutely are supposed to have some raises in a given spot, and I would think primarily a lot of the sets are going to be raised off blocking top pair here. This is different than if the board was like 10 deuce 3, right, Michael? Yep. Where it's dynamic and the guy could barrel off. Here, I don't know if you're going to necessarily see a ton of like multiple barrels with a non-king type of hand. It's also a rainbow board. So I think I would be doing a lot of raising here.
Yep. Yeah, completely understood. I do a little bit of randomization before I play. I think, as we get later into the hand, you'll see that it's kind of irrelevant with set opponent. But I did kind of have my lower frequency combo more or less, so I did opt to call, which, it's kind of a mixed spot. But I agree with you. I should have just raised.
I'm just telling you what I could see some. It makes sense to me that maybe at the stack depth it's a mix, but from what I have seen, that usually the strong hands like this that unblock top pair are some of the ones that are going to be the most frequent raises. But okay, so you call also too stack depth and position. I think. I mean, that's really, unless you're going to be using like a lot of disproportionate overbet sizing on later streets, which a lot of people don't do. There's something to be said for building a pot up because this guy can take cards, he can check back turn. If you just call, the pot is 260. If he checks back turn, I mean, how much can you bet on the river? Like 2x pots, like 550, right? Something like that. So
yeah, of course. Yep,
260. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So the turn, real interesting card, Ace of Hearts.
I mean, interesting in the sense that, Queen Jack was obviously already out there. It's interesting in the sense that you lose to obviously pocket aces, right? And it gives Ace King, top 2, right?
Yep, yeah. Maybe not interesting, more so the action. But so I check, the villain checks back as well.
Hero checks, and villain checks behind. Now, I do find it interesting how often the villain, in a optimal sense, is supposed to be betting Ace King here. A little bit different than if it was like King 10-3. Because like king 10-3 and the turn is an ace is even a little bit more interesting because now you have a situation where queen 10 was just a draw on the flop as opposed to the nuts, right? So, I think that there would be much more of a frequency from your perspective of raising queen jack on king 10-9 than on king 10-3, right? So, when the turn is an ace and you have ace king on king 10-3, queen jack now sort of comes in, whereas here it was already out there. I would imagine there's still a fair amount of betting. And I wonder also, too, this might be a spot where when you turn top set, especially if it was king 10-3 and you had pocket aces and the turn was an ace, I wonder if that spot gets more checked a little bit more, too, in the sense that now all of a sudden you're blocking all the top pair. Maybe king X is going to fold, and maybe not checking, but reflective in a small sizing. And, queen jack now comes out there, whereas, with ace king, you could obviously have ace jack, you could have ace queen, but if someone had, pocket aces, it's obviously less likely. But that doesn't happen. It goes check, check. So we remain at 260. And of course, though, pocket aces can bet, call, or raise because there's, they've got boat equity.
Yeah. Kind of fully anticipated with the run out, kind of just to go check, call, probably all the way on bricks on the river. But
if you were going to play it this way, right?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So the river is the 2 of clubs.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're sitting there with my hand. What do you like to do?
Well, I'm definitely going to bet for sure.
Of course. Yeah. More so sizing, I guess, would be the question.
Because I don't see, the reason why I'm going to bet is I don't see a lot of delayed double barrels like I like to talk about in this spot. And what I mean by delayed double barrel is that sometimes the villain takes a hand that you would think is just going to barrel turn. Let's say the villain had like 6-7 of hearts or something like that, or just like, actually not even hearts, just like 6-7 of spades or something like that, and sees a great double barrel card, but his hand might be so weak that he's going to check it back on the turn. And then if you check the river, he'll bet and bluff now to see what you do. That's what I call a delayed double barrel, but it's kind of a rare thing. So I don't see really a whole lot of merit in checking to pick off a bluff here as played. And it's very optimistic to, get a check raise call from like ace X that might just come out and call anyways. I think, I'm trying to think here. When he checks back turn, what kind of sizing would I use in this spot? I'm trying to think if there's any difference between if you were to sort of use a blockish sizing or betting almost full pot, if that changes any of the range of hands that he has 3-bet, and then he would call with, like, if you come out and bet 225, does king jack or king queen fold? Whereas if you came out and bet like 125, 130, would you get a call from those hands? Or am I just trying to get max value from like ace X? Also, too, if he was making like a range bet with queen, queen, or jack, jack, boy, it's awfully hard for him to call any bet at the end. I think maybe I would bet like 175, something like that, something in that order.
Yeah, appreciate that. So yeah, just like you said, definitely felt no merit in checking. I do go for an extremely small block sizing to target those, again, the king queens, the king jacks, the smaller pairs. So I do bet 80, which in hindsight is a mistake. It's too small.
That is very blocky.
Yeah, of course.
That is very blocky.
Trying to get that crying call, maybe even from queens that just throw it in.
Uh-huh.
So then I do get check rate. Villain raised me to 250. Sorry.
Wow, that's very interesting. So V1 in hijack raises to 250. This is really, really interesting here on the river because there's many, many different things going on. First of all, it's very strange that V1 would check through on turn and now raise river, but you sized so small that he could easily be going for things, I think, that might be worse for value, right? Like if he possibly had checked through like ace king or ace 10 or, ace 9 suited, something like that. The issue, though, of course, now, though, is that even if that's the case, if you bet 3-bet here, and the equation here to bet 3-bet, of course, is that you have to be called by a worse hand more than 50% of the time. Because whenever you put the extra bet in, right, when it gets checked to you or In this case, when you're putting in a raise, it's almost like there's nothing in the pot when you put the extra bet in. It's almost like you're betting into a dry side pot, right? Because you can just call. Like right here, you're getting pot odds, right? 340,
Yep.
It's 600, 170 for you to call. So you're getting whatever, 3-4 to 1. But when you put in the extra bet, now you're giving yourself 1 to 1 on whatever you 3-bet above the 250, which means that he's got to call more than 50% of the time. It's kind of a really interesting, sort of strangely played hand. And then the other thing too, I was thinking about is that would a guy ever, raise here with like queens or jacks as a bluff, pocket queens or pocket jacks as a bluff, trying to represent. Yep. But I don't think that those hands are really gonna call much unless, we can talk about this on paper, even though I've literally never seen it in 10,000 hours of commentary. If someone would be like, well, you could 3-bet here, and then the villain, when he raised you with queens and jacks, he can 4-bet the river as a bluff. Yes, he can. It's just so few and far between. It really does look like to me, based upon this action, I don't think he's got queen jack. So it does look to me like you have induced like a value raise. And because you have 10-10 and kings and aces, how often they sort of check back the turn, it kind of seems like he might have an aces up type of hand here.
Yep.
So in live poker, depending on sort of like how good the villain is, I might go to like 600 to try to get like a crying call, something like that.
Yeah, so that's actually
like
exactly
a very
what
small
I
3-bet sizing, but I think it's very, very close. It's very,
Yeah.
and the only reason why is because of this block dynamic at the end. So if you price him now, if you had just bet anything like 125, 150, and he raises, it's just a call 100%, right? A call 100%. But here, it's a little dink and dunk. So it becomes very, very close if you, let's say, click it to like 550, something like that.
Yeah. So, hindsight, exactly what you said. I've sent this hand to a couple buddies. Definitely need to be going half or above on the river, which, like you said, induces the 250. And I pretty much felt the same way that you did. So actually, I did just think the range is predominantly consistent, I guess, of ace king, or like you said, some aces up. So I did just make it 600, kind of a click to get that crying call.
Right. So Street Soul Lover in the live chat says, if we 3-bet, is ace king or ace 10 going to call? Well, that is what I'm targeting. So if villain goes to 550, like I said, he went to 600, but if villain went to 550, the pot would be 340 and then 600 and then another. It would be like 1,007. It'd be like right around 1,100, 300 for the guy in the button to call, or excuse me, the guy in the hijack to call. So it's all about sort of pot odds. And I don't know. I don't know if a guy's going to like raise fold ace king here, getting like a very, very good price at the end. So that's kind of where I'm going here with this thinking. But here it goes to 600. Okay.
Yep. So villain tanks forever, and does end up calling with the king, and kind of slam the hand down. Obviously, when they're tanking, I kind of felt like I was good. Flipped over my hand first, felt happy about it, and kind of like slammed down the kings like they bluff called me. I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I feel I played the hand pretty poorly with the river sizing, but interesting line with king for sure.
I wonder what he does I wonder at what point that he just calls as played. Like your bet size at the end, like if you went 175, is he just calling?
Yeah, I mean, potentially comes off as a pretty tight player if they're checking back the turn there. And again, kind of tanking. It seems like they might have thought I just had queen jack and didn't raise them on the flop. I don't know. Again, I don't have a ton of hours with said opponent to really know the thought process, but certainly would say the opponent is pretty tight. And after talking with a couple other players in the pool, they kind of laughed at me and were like, yeah, the player's just extremely tight, and you kind of missed out on that, I guess.
Well, obviously, if the player's extremely tight and doesn't in place super straightforward post, then it becomes more of a call. And again, like on paper, if you didn't really say the sizing, if you said quote unquote normal sizing, which would be like 40 to like pot at the end when a guy raises you, yeah, it's just a call. It's just because of the very small bets, it seems to get some hands that would otherwise call to possibly make thin value raises. In my case is that if you make it small enough coming back over the top, you will get called by worse. But the equation is 50%. If you can't, then it's just a call. I appreciate the call, Michael. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time.